very much and for highlighting a seriously underappreciated and unacknowledged problem that's happening, as well as your other work. Thank you for that. I would like to ask a couple of questions and yield to my colleagues that I have more questions I would like to pose. But I'd like to start off with the whole issue. Remember last time, Ambassador Dyer, I asked you about the unaccompanied minors, the 85,000. That was the generally accepted number of those coming across our border who we had lost contact with. Did not know. I mean, I reached out to Homeland Security, as you recommended, and we still don't know what happened to those kids. And that number could be far in excess of that now. We don't know. It probably is. And HHS as well, but Homeland Security is what you had recommended. We reached out to both. And I'm wondering, what can be done? Are we trying to track those kids? Find out where they are? I mean, I'm a great advocate of adoption, and I know how important home studies are and how important it is to vet those who are going to receive a child and make that child part of their home. Well, when that conveyance of that child is occurring in mass, and that's what has been happening, those kinds of very high bar standards are not even close to being fulfilled. So it would be easy for a scammer to get their hands on a kid to sexually exploit and/or labor exploitation, but we still seem to be woefully ill-informed about what about those kids.
The plight of the unaccompanied children who have, especially those who have been identified working in completely inappropriate workplace environments that has been reported in the news, it is heartbreaking. I do recall your interest and your passion for this subject, and I am happy to report what we have done most recently. In particular, the State Department works closely with our colleagues at DHS and HHS, who share responsibility for processing unaccompanied children and caring for them, placing them, and discharging them, hopefully, into loving and appropriate homes. We know that the increase in the reports of child labor violations, especially as we spoke about of migrant children, it is terrible in itself, and it is a risk factor for becoming a risk of trafficking in persons. This is something that actually we covered fairly significantly in the U.S. narrative of this year's Trafficking in Persons report. HHS is vetting and assessing sponsors, and they have in fact expanded their post-release services, and they are committed to expanding those post-release services to all of the children that have been placed with a sponsor. In particular, the Trafficking in Persons report, as we address this issue globally, we are specifically recommending increased funding so that all children have legal representation. Having access to a legal counsel will provide specific security and safety for them. Additionally, we, and I think this is something that you had brought up, are encouraging and recommending increased in-person wellness checks. As we know, the children that you have spoken about were individuals, they were with a sponsor that did not respond to a phone call. And so our Trafficking in Persons report is therefore recommending then in-person wellness checks for individuals that don't respond to a phone call.
If I could interrupt, is that being done now?
That is recommended in the report, and I do know that
doesn't take legislation, that just takes executive action. Why won't they do it?
What we know for sure is that HHS has already expanded the post-relief services, and they are seeking funding to expand them to all children. I think more specificity, I might need to refer to my colleagues at HHS, but I do know that they have, and this was reported in the Trafficking in Persons report as a positive development. There was a notable expansion of services, specifically post-release services to children.
Has there been any accountability for the 85,000? Have any been discovered to have been exploited? Have they been brought to a safe haven of some kind, whether it be within a family or some government institution?
I
What
think
about those kids?
I think that the specific circumstances of the individual children would be something that maybe we would have to refer to my colleagues at HHS. I don't have access to the specific identifying information.
Could you make that inquiry? I mean, you are the top tip person, and
Yes, and as you
we
know,
believe in our own neighborhoods, these kids are being horribly mistreated. We don't know. They're probably very afraid to come forward. And, you know, in the FY 2023 amount, 15 million, that was reduced. It was 18 million in 2022, so it looks like there's even less money available for this. So I don't think it's a matter of money. I think it's a matter of prioritization. It's saying, if that were my child, heaven and earth would be moved before I would say, oh, that person is okay. When you have any kind of doubt whatsoever, again, using the model, if I could, of adoption. I mean, we do vigorous vetting with adoption. Even there's problems, but they're mitigated because of that vetting process. So if you could get back to us with that, it would be extraordinarily
yes, as you know, we work closely through the Senior Policy Operating Group, and in fact, some of these improvements that were noted in the TIP report were discussed in those meetings, and we are happy to follow up on that.
Okay, thank you. You know, you mentioned the Senior Policy Operating Group. COVID taught us that many of these purveyors of harm to children quickly during COVID-19 went to using the internet and using it very effectively to recruit, groom, and ECPAT did one report after another and exposed. And we also, you know, like a chorus called out for more protection for these kids. And I'm just wondering, what do you think needs to be done to further protect kids from that kind of online exploitation where they're groomed? I mean, we saw in one instance there was a grooming that took place within an hour. You know, the person befriended this vulnerable young girl, and next thing you know, she was being exploited. It equally goes for the boys too, where these people are masters at, and very masterful at exploiting people. What are we doing on that front?
As the Trafficking in Persons report has noted, and as you have said, we have definitely seen an increase in online sexual exploitation of children, sex trafficking of children, and child sexual abuse material in both the U.S. and other countries post-COVID. And we absolutely acknowledge that social media can be used to allure kids. This is one of the reasons that the TIP report highlighted the introduction focusing on technology and its impact on trafficking, and how it can be used for good and also for bad. Specific to your questions, we recommend that parents, government, tech companies, and media partner. We believe that there should be a prioritization on education so that children have online safety tools. Additionally, if kids are online, we are suggesting and promoting that perhaps developing and utilizing online tools and meet them where they are. We also know that technology can be used for good. It can help identify victims. It can help victims self-report, and it can help victims access service and know about service. There are a couple of examples of where technology has been used for good that I will flag. One is the Trafficking in Persons Office has supported the International Center for Missing and Exploited Children, who are using a multilingual virtual training to provide much needed training on how to use technology in many different languages to thousands of criminal justice professionals. I will also highlight the very successful Child Protection Compact that was focused on Philippines and specifically on online sexual exploitation, which has seen a measurable decrease in that crime. So I think that this is an opportunity for us to be aware of how it can be dangerous, but also utilize how it can be effective. And there are a couple of other notes about this that are noted in the introduction, including IOM has a counter-trafficking data collaborative, which makes data more available. And one other one, which I think is a good example of companies doing good. IBM has a traffic analysis hub, which uses AI data sets to help us better respond to this problem. I appreciate your interest, and that was exactly why we had the technology focus in our introduction to this year.
I'll just ask two others, and then in the second round, I have some additional questions.